thing to produce. And in this first part, this is actually a 3-semester program. You guys that are leaving get 1 semester. This first part is to develop. Okay, sit. Are you with a team or by yourself?
Yeah.
All right, we finally got a team of 2, man. Yeah. So the idea is to develop in your mind an innovation activity and an innovation plan. Okay, so if I say to you, using our American, the tech startup company that I'm with as a founder and a board member, if I say, we're going to develop a mobile-based app to do training for sales and customer service personnel at major clients. We have Hyundai, Hilton Hotel, Emirates Airlines. We've got major clients, okay? But if I say that that's my innovation activity, well, I first have to go through what we call concept validation, okay? And that's what we're going to do, as I said in that document that I hope you read, 1 page. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go through concept validation. And what that means simply, it's very simple. It means you have to convince yourself, and then you have to convince potential investors, potential employees, or if you're doing this not as a startup, you're doing this for the company you work for, you have to convince your bosses and the shareholders of the company that this idea has merit, meaning it's probably, very high probability that it's feasible, and a very high probability that it's profitable and sustainable. Okay. Now I say high probability because you never know until you know, right? Right. But if you say this way, I keep using the example of the time machine. If you say to me, hey man, I got a really cool idea, let's develop a time machine. I'm going to say, wow, that is so cool. I've always wanted to have a time machine, but it violates the laws of physics. Therefore, when you do concept validation, I hope it would take about 3 seconds to say, whoops, this idea is not going anywhere. It's dead because it violates the laws of physics. If you come up with a plan, and I've seen some very good ideas, like the solar farm or the restaurant that one of the students had, and one of the online students. If the online student who has the idea about a restaurant, okay, restaurants are in America can be very highly profitable, but if you say, well, I'm going to have a restaurant, and I ask you a question like, okay, are you going to cater to wealthy consumers, middle-class consumers? And the answer is, I don't know. Then my response is, well, you've invalidated your own concept, right? Because you can't develop a restaurant unless you first figure out, am I going to appeal to wealthy consumers or middle-class consumers? Well, it depends. What is the menu you're offering? What urban location are you in, right? Are you in Manhattan, or are you in some small village, in Dnipropetrovsk Oblast? Well, okay, right. So this is what we mean by concept validation. And the reason that it's fun is that it's like impossible to fail if you come up with an idea and you keep working that idea through your mind, all the different dimensions, all the different things that have to be done, right? Think of a factory. If you say, I'm going to develop a steel mill, I say, okay, that's cool. Well, if you're going to develop a steel mill, you have to start thinking about, where do we get the raw materials? We need iron ore, chromium, and manganese. Where do we get them? How much are they going to cost? How far away are they? Okay, are we going to produce low-value steel or high-value steel, right? What is going to be the scale, right? You can't make a steel mill that produces 1 ton of steel per year. It's too small. So the capital costs are too high and the revenue is too small. So you have to figure out the proper scale, and on and on and on and on it goes. And as you work through that thought process, then you begin to create a multi-dimensional concept. And it's going to be really hard to have a concept that cannot be validated. You can have a concept that's poorly thought out. You can have a concept that because you forgot to think about something, like, I'm going to produce steel. Oops, I forgot. I need iron ore, right? Okay. So it's kind of hard to have a concept that you don't validate if you put together all the little pieces. Like Lego, like those little Legos. Okay. And that's what this class is about. And the reason this is so important, okay, which is why I'm going to keep pushing on you when I'm here. You'll have other professors, they'll be nicer. If you want to succeed in life, there's the 3 C's. I don't know why it's always C, right? When I was studying finance and banking, they used to talk about the 3 C's: cash, credit, and collateral. Okay, but in life, there's the human 3 C's, and the human 3 C's are creativity, right? You can think of what the other 2 might be. Creativity is really a good one. I'll tell you the other 2 as we go along. But creativity is one of the big 3 C's. So if you are trying to get people to invest money in your company, you need to be creative, right? You have to convince them that you're a really creative thinker, or why should they invest money in you, right? You have to convince them of that. I'm very creative. If you're going to go get a job, you're going to bump into the other C, which is curiosity, right? Who wants to hire a zombie? I've had hundreds of people working for me in my different companies and careers, but I've never hired a zombie. But someone who demonstrates to me immediately that they're curious, it's like, cool, because they got all these degrees, so they've proven they're intellectually smart. But if they're curious, then this is somebody that I can work with to make money, because you make money nowadays by being creative and curious. And hey, what about that? What about that? And then of course the other 3 is character, right? You always show up. You're never late. You never miss anything. You're always 1 step ahead of the competition, right? You got that character, you got that drive. So if somebody's teasing you, you say, well, I can be a team of 1 and succeed. That's character, man. So bravo. No, that's character. Okay, fine. Tease me. I'll be a team of 1. I'll succeed. All right. So if you read that, that's what we're talking about, is this idea of validating. This thing died. What's the password? Anybody got a password? Come on in. Sit with a team or oh, you're with that team. All right, cool. Sit back there. You adopted him. All right. All right. I'm gonna give you a little bit of an example, okay, of the thought process, and then tragically, I'm gonna ask you guys to start telling me stuff. Okay? And so don't worry. All right. Now check this out. This is so cool. That's not cool. That's not cool because nothing's there. So what do you suppose happened to the screen there?
Wait a second. And when we create an innovation activity, do we need to present like coursework? That's what I mean. What do we need to present printed the last day or to pass the course?
Well, I would be creative. No, seriously, I'm not. First of all, for you guys who couldn't come, okay, go back and look at the videos, okay, because we videotaped the first 2 sessions, and look at the material that's there, the PowerPoints, because in the PowerPoints on the first day, I gave, I don't know, 30 different examples of current innovation activities that are attracting vast amounts of money from all over the world. Okay, I mean they're mostly people your age. They're doing something new. They're doing it in the not-for-profit sector, the for-profit sector, the government sector. They're getting noticed, getting awards from like Price Waterhouse, and they're getting bucket loads of money invested in their activities, and they cover literally everything from A to Z. So go back and look at those videos, and then look at those. I don't have my glasses on. I want to go away.
I'm gonna switch off the light because it's not really, you cannot see it clearly.
Cool.
Is that gonna be okay for you?
I love you. That's called initiative. No, man, come on. No, I'm telling you, life is fun. But if you're gonna have fun in life, you gotta be able to, have to take some teasing, have some give and take, and get out there and go. If any of you guys had been working for me during the last 20 or so years in Kiev, you would have made a lot of money, or you would have really good jobs, because a lot of the people, you know what I do with the very best people in my companies in Kiev? I kick them out. They stay. Like I had this guy. That's 3 or 4 of these. I had a Ukrainian. They're all Ukrainians, but I had this Ukrainian guy, and after 7 years, I said, "You got to get the hell out of here, man, because I can't compensate you. You're young, and your world is bigger than just my company." Okay, so this guy ended up. He's the chief appraiser for Oshad, the entire country of Ukraine. Chief appraiser of Oshad, the entire company of Ukraine. That's cool. I had a woman, and I said, "Oh, man, you're brilliant." And she was there for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. And we kicked her out because I said, "Man, you're so entrepreneurial. And so you got to go do your own entrepreneurial thing, because you're not maximizing your potential in life by working for me while I'm the entrepreneur." Well, she went out and created her own auditing company, found a really special niche. And I'm telling you, in the last 10 years, she has made a lot more money than I have. So trust me, I get really good birthday presents, okay? I get really good birthday presents. But I literally kicked them out, okay? So, all right, look, why am I putting this up here? Because this is part of the creative thought process, okay? I put that up there because I know you're looking at that and saying, "Wow, what the heck?" Right? Okay, look. Think 1981.
F5. Maybe a full screen.
There's something here.
No, F5.
Oh, you told me that before.
Yeah.
And I don't have my glasses. Okay, see? You're already passing the class because. Right?
So now you're hired, right?
Probably. Okay. Probably. Yeah. See, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to say, "Hey, come on, man. I told you that last week. I think I told you that the week before that. F5. Somebody told me F5. Okay. Well, I don't have my glasses. I can't see anything. Okay. Seriously now, this is actually serious thought process. 1981, we had something called a pencil, right? Now, of course, that's low tech, okay? And then we had this guy. This is almost identical to my first desktop computer, because I was, running this research program in the U.S. federal government. So we got every new, computer thing. We got the first fax machine and, all of that stuff. And because I was a supervisor, I got a computer that had 2 of those. Okay. People who weren't supervisors, this is the government, right? They only got 1. And those are those big floppy disk things that you'd stick in the, right? And then they were always getting bent and then they wouldn't work, okay? But this thing was absolute state-of-the-art 1981. Now, think about today. Does this still exist today?
Yeah.
It does, but does it look like that?
No.
And it doesn't run on floppy disks, right? And God, this thing probably, I mean, God, it was as slow could be. So this actually, this product provided a service that no one would buy today. Because remember, there's no products, there's only services, right? A car is not a product. A car provides transportation services. A computer is not a product. A computer provides the ability to manipulate words and numbers, right? It allows you to be a symbolic analyst. So there's no products, there's only services, right? Food is not a product. The energy you get from food is a service, right? Food gives you the service of energy. So there's no product. But we still say products and services. This service, very quickly, and nowadays almost every year, no longer meets the demands that a consumer has. A consumer has a job to be done, right? Right? And this thing doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't do the job that the consumer wants it to do. So we all have laptops now, and that laptop right there is a million times more powerful than that. So the need, the job that had to be done stays the same, but this guy died. And by the way, the one who came after it died, and the generation after it died, and the generation after that died. We've had more generations of computers, right, than you can count. Now the job stays the same, but the product dies. Okay? So if you said, oh, I got this really cool idea, I'm going to go retro, and my innovation activity is to build a computer that has, I don't know, 30K memory, right? Not 128 gigabytes, maybe 30K memory, and it operates on big floppy disks. Well, that's not going to work, right? But if you said my innovation idea is to open a factory and produce pencils, that's going to work. That's going to work. Why wouldn't it work? Depends on, where do you put the factory? How many pencils do you make? Can you make them more attractive than other pencils? Can you market them in a better way? I mean, right? Everybody has pencils. A pen is the same thing as a pencil, right? Everybody has pencils. The job, the reason that guy, and that guy's, hundreds of years old, right? But the reason that guy still exists, and you can create an innovation activity around pencils. Like maybe I'll have pencils that are technicolor, they glow in the dark, right? I mean, lots of things you can do with pencils. But the reason you can come up with a lot of creative ideas about pencils is because the consumer's job to be done, what the consumer needs a pencil to do, still exists. There is no better way to make a note in a book than with a pencil or a pen. But you can notice you have a computer, but then you also have a pencil and a pen. And that's really cool because the computer lets you do something like really, really, really fast, but you still got that pen and that pad after, right? Even though you have a computer that can like run an entire country, right? That computer has enough power to manage an entire country, and yet you still have a pencil and a pen. So this is what innovation is all about. It's not a linear thing, right? It's not like, well, first we had pencils, now we got computers. No. We never, it doesn't work like that. It's not like we had pencils. sit with your team, or if you don't have one, sit alone, because I'm going to take a picture at some point. So it's not linear, okay? Because if it was, if innovation was linear, life was linear, we wouldn't have pencils. We would have said, screw that, we'll just go to computers, right? And then we just keep moving on with a better and a better and a better computer. And we do keep moving on with better and better and better computers. But we never, ever, ever keep moving on away from the pencil, because the pencil, you know, is just right there in a perfect market niche. There's a need, there's a demand, and the pencil fills it, right? So the moral of the story, there's no such thing as low tech, high tech, right? There's no such thing as old tech, new tech. When you think about it, it doesn't mean anything. It's meaningless, right? High tech, low tech, old tech, new tech. Doesn't mean anything.
No, why? You have high-tech pencils, like, which look like pens, and you put like this thin thing into it, so it's high-tech pencil, and this is low-tech pencil.
But they
that
don't.
one is still using the low-tech pencils.
Right, but they, no, you guys are, I agree with exactly what both of you said. But notice, whether it's like something really super high tech and it plays music and there's colors, or it's just the stupid yellow thing, that's superficial. If you go underneath that, the pencil is still fulfilling the same basic consumer need, which is to take a note on a piece of paper, right? So this is how you do innovation. You never focus on a product, okay? And you know, I always like to tease engineers, and they say, man, I got this cool app. This is gonna conquer the world because I got this cool app, and look, I can push on this icon, and then the app does something. And I did all this programming, and it's really cool. And then nobody buys your app. Why? Because you forgot you were focusing on the product, you're focusing on the technology. What you gotta do is focus on the consumer need, okay?
Okay, but like talking about iPhones, for example, like the first iPhone that was made like many years ago, and like the newest that was released this September, it's high tech, and like that one that was made like 10 years ago is can be considered as low tech because like nobody's using it, nobody wants it, like nobody buys it. So
Yep. No, I agree. No, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, the iPhone 10 compared to the first iPhone, you can describe that. But the very first iPhone still fulfilled a fundamental human need, which was called convenient communication.
Of course, but like Nokia also does that. I mean, until now you can find Nokia from your dad's shop and like take it, and you can still turn it on and call it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right,
but like
right.
talking about iPhones, like for example, I don't know, iPhone 7 or iPhone 8, which is like 3 or 4 years now.
Mhm.
Like the last iPhone, which is 11, is like brand new, like all the stuff, but like they are not really different. Like they do not fulfill any different needs. I mean, it's just hype around it happening.
Yes. Okay. I agree 100% with what you're saying. If you in the very first session, we talked about 3 kinds of innovation. And one kind of innovation, which is what you're describing, exactly what Apple's doing, is, and Apple's a little more complicated example. So you could think of Roshen chocolate, okay? If you're introducing a new type of chocolate candy or a still yet another new version of the iPhone, this is all you're doing this is what's called a sustaining innovation. It's very one-dimensional. It doesn't grow the market very much, it might, but it doesn't really grow the market. It doesn't create a new market. It just maintains the brand and maintains the market share, okay? Right? So think of a company that produces chocolate, right? So there's a market of people who consume chocolate. And then you say, okay, we're going to introduce another chocolate product. It's going to be a chocolate covered grasshopper. Okay, well, somebody might buy that new product, but that means that that person is probably now buying less of the other product. So you probably haven't grown your sales that much, but you're maintaining your brand, and you're giving like something new to consumers, even though it really isn't new. Okay, you're maintaining your market share. Maybe people like chocolate covered grasshoppers so much at say Roshan that they stop buying some chocolate from Nestle's, so their sales go down and Roshan's go up. But still, it's a zero-sum game, right? You're not creating a new market. And when you create a new market, that's where the big money is, at the new market. So what Apple's doing is similar to what candy companies do, ice cream companies, right? They're just creating like a new product so people think the brand is fresh, and right, they look kind of new. They're maintaining the brand, they're maintaining market share, but they're not really creating new consumers of cell phones, because who buys the Apple 11, did you say? Gee, good for you. I thought there were only 10 versions. Okay, who buys the Apple 11? Well, almost everyone who buys Apple 11 probably owns an Apple 10 or a 9 or an 8. I'm not an Apple phone guy. But you see what I'm saying? So there's no new market being created there. But it's an important sustaining innovation. And I do agree, you can say that whatever version of the iPhone exists today is a lot more sophisticated than the original one. But the important question is, why did anybody buy the original iPhone?
What do you mean, back then or no?
No, the very, very first iPhone, whatever Steve Jobs called it.
Because that was an innovation.
Well, it was an innovation, but again, nobody would have bought it unless it fulfilled a need. So when the very, very first iPhone came out, and it was the very first smartphone, I remember watching a little 2-minute video and I was shocked. I was like, God, I can't believe this, right? I mean, the original, you could turn it and the picture would turn. It had all the, okay. The big question is not, why does somebody buy an iPhone, say 10? The big question is, why did they buy the very first iPhone to begin with? And the answer is because Steve Jobs hit the sweet spot. He first identified an unmet consumer need. And the unmet consumer need is, I want to be able to walk around talking on my phone. I don't want to be stuck with the length of the cord. And by the way, I also want to be able to do other things with my phone than just make a phone call. And so he said, okay, cool, I see those needs, okay? Why did Uber become instantly successful? Now, by the way, they may actually go out of business here in the next few years, but that's a different story. But I think those of you who were here on day one, I told this story, right? Uber became an instant success because they didn't do anything new, because people have been moving their bodies from point A to point B for forever, right? But the guy, Kalanick or whatever his name is, who founded Uber, he figured out what is the unmet need. And the unmet need is this. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm standing on the sidewalk in Manhattan, and I don't have any money, cash. I don't have any cash. And I want to get a taxi on the way home. And I wave at a taxi and he goes by. Why? Because, well, he doesn't like the looks of me. Or taxi stops, I get in the taxi and I say, hey, I got $100 bill. And he says, I don't have any change, right? So Uber figured out, hey, we have transportation, but what we don't have is on-demand transportation, where you get a car, your own car, right here, right now. You don't need money. The cab doesn't have to carry money, so it's safer for you. It's safer for him. You can see who he is, right? You can see, oh, he's had 6,000 rides, and he's got a 4.8 rating, and there's his picture. Oh, and he's got a black Toyota something, and I can see the license plate. And this so Uber hit the sweet spot. This was a really powerful, unmet consumer need. And that's called innovation. They jumped right in there. And that was market creating innovation. But before they could take advantage globally of meeting this huge unmet need, they had to simultaneously do the third kind of innovation, which is, efficiency systems, right? They had to build the Uber platform. And that's a really huge, complicated platform they built, right? With the maps and matching up drivers and people. Okay, so they had to do that innovation. But before they could do all that efficiency innovation, building platform, they had to first discover the unmet consumer need. Because if they had tried to build the platform first, they would have failed. Build a platform for what? Right? So they first discovered the unmet need, and then they came up with this concept. And I just told you the concept, which is the same thing you're going to do in this class. They came up with the concept. They said, okay, here's the concept. On demand, right here, right now. I don't need money. The driver doesn't need money. So we have safety, we have convenience.
Not
right?
really safety in Ukraine. It's not really safe here. Whatever.
The world is never 100% safe.
Yeah, but have you ever used Uber in Ukraine?
Yeah, I've used Uber and Uklon. There's no 100%, but again, that's not the question, right? Remember, life is not binary. Life is not 0 or 1. 0, no security. 1 is perfect security, right? Before you had on-demand taxis, there was less certainty and less security than there is with on-demand. So yeah, right, you can get in an Uber and be murdered, but the probability that you're going to get murdered in an Uber is less than the probability you'll get murdered just flagging some guy, everyone's a taxi, right? You come to the airport, Borisov, and all these guys run, hey, you need a taxi? Well, of course you say no. Who the fuck are you? I'm not getting in your car. No, you go over to the little booth there, or you call Uber or Uklon or Bolt, or you go to the little booth and you get okay. So it's never binary. It's never 100% safe, or you're going to die the first time you get in the car. But there was this unmet consumer need that said, give me more convenience, give me more security, and Uber saw it, and they built a model, and kerboom, okay? So, by the way, Uber's problems are not on the innovation side. That was just brilliant. They were brilliant to see the need. They were brilliant the way they met the need very quickly, very efficiently. Their problems are more on the day-to-day management side, okay? They've kind of managed themselves poorly. Okay, so look, I picked a new drug because none of you have come up with an innovation idea to develop a new drug. And if we talk about something like solar energy or a restaurant, then I'll be giving undue help. Everybody has to be treated the same. But I put this up here, and there's only 3 or 4 of these, and then you guys get to talk. But this is how the innovation thought process works, okay? First of all, if you start by saying, we're going to create a new drug, you have failed immediately, right? You have to think, what, because people don't buy drugs, all right? By the way, people buy a desired outcome, like Uber. More safe, more reliable, cheaper transportation, right? So people buy a desired outcome. And in this case, people don't buy pharmaceutical products. What they're buying is better health, or what they think is better health. Okay? 'Cause I know what you're going to say. You can take a lot of drugs and you get less healthy. That's true. But they think everyone who goes to their doctor and gets a prescription or they go buy some drug over the counter, they don't say, I'm buying a drug. No, they think they're getting better health. So you have to first start with what is the consumer need? And in this case, it's better health. Okay? And it doesn't matter. I didn't pick any particular kind of drug. Because all drugs ultimately are trying to fulfill this consumer need, better health, right? Nobody takes a pill because they want to be less healthy. They take a pill so they get more healthy. That's okay. Sit with your team, and if you don't have one, sit by
I
yourself.
think I don't have how it's usual.
Okay.
It is always working.
All right. So you start, and so solar energy, right? There's a solar energy team here. Okay. People, if you start by saying, I'm gonna produce solar energy, you've already failed. Because you got the horse in front of the wagon, or behind the wagon, sorry. You got it's always a good idea. That the horse is behind the wagon, okay? First you have to say, okay, people don't want photovoltaic cells, and people don't want solar energy. People want heat in their homes. They want light after dark. They want those things even though they live somewhere where the electricity supply is unreliable or too expensive, or there is no electricity supply like most of Asia, South America, Africa, parts of North America. A lot of North America doesn't have electricity on grid, okay, because the US is rich, but it's too big. It costs $1 trillion to run, all those wires out there. So people they don't want electricity. They don't want electricity from coal or electricity from hydro or electricity from solar. All right. They want light after dark, and they want warmth, and then they want those things even though they're off grid, right? They're not plugged into some system. All right. Once you focus on that, now you know what to provide, because you say, well, who are those people? Well, are these people who live in a city and they just have a warehouse and they want to provide their own independent energy supply? Maybe. That's a totally different kind of innovation, totally different kind of activity you've got to do for them, okay? Or is it one house sitting out in the middle of North Dakota somewhere who literally has to get their own heat and their own light from their own source of energy, whatever it is, right? Because right away that's going to tell you a lot about scale and what kind of energy. Maybe it's wind, maybe it's solar, small scale, large scale, right? Okay, so you gotta first get right down to what's the consumer need. What does the consumer really want? I used this example, and if you haven't heard it, go look at the videos. But think about this, it's a really powerful example. I didn't invent this one, I wish I had. Okay, you all know what a drill is, right? Right? Okay, take a drill and so, and maybe you put a little drill bit there and you get say a 1 centimeter hole, right? Okay. Nobody wants a 1 centimeter drill. Nobody. But they want a 1 centimeter hole, right? Now, if you think about that, that's not intended to be cute and clever. It's really powerful. Nobody buys a drill, they buy a hole. They don't need the drill, they need the hole. And they need the hole, right? Right? They need better health, they need a hole. And maybe they need a hole in a piece of wood. Maybe they need a hole in a piece of metal. Maybe they need a hole this big, maybe they need a hole that. And now they'll go out and find the product that will give them the hole that they need. right? So the only reason we have drills is because we have people who need holes, okay? Okay, so look, back here, better health, right? All right, first thing, and again, this is kind of how my brain works. I'm not suggesting, to your question, that you come to the last couple days of the class and you put this picture up, but you just change the words in the box. You might want to come up with your own way of expressing your thoughts. You can do it all verbally, okay? I'm doing this because I have to fulfill a consumer need. And the consumer need is to try and understand what in the hell it is I'm saying. And the best way to try to make you understand what I'm saying is to show it in a picture, okay? All right, so when I sit down and think in my own brain, I don't draw myself a picture. It's a waste of time. All right, so your better health and a new drug. Well, first thing is you got to, okay, what knowledge, what skills have to be brought to bear in order to produce a new drug to give better health? And here they are, okay? And they're purposely in different boxes. Somebody's got to have knowledge of physics and nanotechnology. Okay, you know, nano means a billionth, right? A billionth, like a nanometer is a billionth of a meter. Because drugs operate at the level of molecules, right? So somebody's got to understand physics and nanotechnology. Somebody's got to understand IT, algorithms, virtual reality. Why? Because nowadays, if you want to produce a drug, the way pharmaceutical companies produce drugs is they build 3D virtual reality models of the proteins, right? And the molecules forming the proteins. And then they use really sophisticated big data analytics to model the proteins 3D, model the molecules, build a protein, fold the protein, attach it to other proteins, right? They're doing that all 3D, and it's really sophisticated IT and algorithms that drive the IT, that's driving the virtual reality, but it's all based on understanding the physics of a certain kind of molecule, a certain kind of protein, for example. Somebody's got to understand the basic chemistry and biology. And then we're going to have to produce this drug and get it to the market somehow, meaning a delivery mechanism. Is it going to be a pill? Is it going to be a needle? Is it going to be dry form in a pill, liquid form in a capsule? We're going to use a needle. Are we going to implant, like diabetics now, you get a little chip. I mentioned this already, a little chip somewhere in your arm. And the little chip is measuring your glucose 24/7, talking to your cell phone app 24/7. It's talking to your doctor 24/7, right? That's really cool. That's really cool. It's powerful stuff. So you have to be thinking about, the manufacturing aspect, 3D printing. We're now moving to where you can 3D print a human kidney. I mean, you can literally 3D print a functioning human kidney. You can 3D print artificial organs like a heart, for example. Okay, and so we have to then figure out what is the delivery mechanism, and that we start getting more into the physical. A liquid is a physical, a pill is a physical, a chip, right? So these are all the, almost like most fundamental things we have to think about. And the reason we got to think about this is we have to ask ourselves, do we have in our team the skills necessary to do that? Or some yes, some no. Okay, fine. Let's focus on the skills we don't have. Do we have the ability to find and engage, either hire them or make them partners, right? So we got to know what all the skills and knowledge we're going to need, and then we got to think, do we have it, and if not, can we find it? Okay. So this is something you'll do in terms of validating your innovation idea. Okay. And if you wanted to be creative and have fun and look at a pharmaceutical, go ahead. And then you'd come and say, hey, okay, we're going to need these kinds of specialists, and we're going to hire them. And, on an annual basis to hire these kinds of guys, it'll probably cost, $500,000 a year, $2 million a year in salaries, approximately. Okay, that's good enough for concept validation, right? Or you say, well, I'm going to do this in a certain country, but we just absolutely don't have anybody in this country with these kinds of super advanced skills that can do this. So forget about the drug. I'm going to go concentrate on some other activity, right? This is the validation. Okay, notice now we still keep focusing on the ultimate goal, right? Better health. But now we've kind of come up a level, right? And now we start thinking about things that are more well-known to business students, things like the production process, the logistics system, the business. We're going to have to manufacture this, okay? And when you say production process, right away I can think of about 20 other different little boxes, okay? But notice they're all integrated, right? There's no standalone boxes in life. Everything's holistic and integrated. But when you say production process, you say, wow, that's kind of, right away I can think of 100 things I have to consider. The logistics system, from raw materials to the consumer, whereas I love this expression. I learned this expression in India. It's a beautiful expression about agribusiness, from farm to fork. There's a brilliant scientist in India gave me that. Farm to fork, right? That's cool. Well, that's your logistics system, right? And business processes, you got to raise money, okay, blah, 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 blah. Now, this box I put et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because I don't want to give you the idea that you should always think in terms of 4 boxes. Think in terms of 2 boxes or 4 million boxes, okay? So et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's going to be many, many, many other things. And to give you one last example of that, if we focus just on the production process, remember back here, I said, wait a minute, as soon as I put in my brain the idea that we have to have some kind of a production process, that immediately generates other little boxes that pop up in my brain. And like the concept of scalability. Okay, this is really crucial. It's really crucial. I've seen so many existing companies or startup companies, existing companies with projects or startup companies that fail because they forget about the concept of scalability. If you say, I'm going to build a coal-fired power station, I'd say, okay, that's cool. I wish you wouldn't. It's killing the planet. But hey, it's a free world. If you want to build a coal-fired power station, go ahead. But here's the deal with a coal-fired power station. You have, just think about this. You have one scale here, and then you want to make a bigger scale, you got to go all the way up here. You want to make a bigger scale, you got to go all the way up here. There is no curve. There's no straight line, or there's no curve, because coal-fired power stations, steel mills, they don't work that way. Okay? I mean, you can't just incrementally add a little more to your steel blast furnace, right? It's this big, and I will make it a little bit. No, you got to buy a whole nother one, right? So the capital in a steel mill, or the capital in a power station, they come in big discrete chunks, and so you can't just sort of marginally increase your output once you're operating at capacity. Okay, you just got to add a whole nother big package of assets, and you go from and first of all, you don't ever start small, right? This was the mistake Mao Zedong made in the 1960s. We're going to have backyard steel mills. Well, that didn't work out. Because, there's a minimum scale to be economically competitive in the steel industry, the power industry, and that minimum scale is really big, okay? And if you want to be bigger, then you're going to be really much bigger. But what's cool about solar and wind, more solar, is that they tend to be more easily, more efficiently, more economically scalable. So you can build, like in Spain, you can go out desert of Spain and build one of the world's largest solar farms, or you can put one solar panel on one house out in the middle of nowhere, and they both provide the need that the consumer has. Okay, give me heat and light, right? Heat during the day and light after dark, and they're scalable. Okay, one of the reasons that coal and oil-fired power stations, typical old power stations, one of the reasons they're kind of going away is because they're losing the cost competitive battle to things like solar and wind, because they're not just more environmentally friendly, they're more scalable, and so therefore they can reach a broader audience. Okay, so this issue of scalability, and that's something you got to think about, because that's probably the first question that I would ever ask. Okay, hey, I'm going to develop a solar farm. Cool, what scale? And you can't just say, oh, small, because then I would say, well, where are you going to put it? Are you going to put it in Nigeria? Yeah, I'm going to put it in Nigeria. Are you going to put it in Lagos? Or are you going to put it out in the Far East? Oh, I'm going to put it out in the far. Okay, well, if you're going to put it out in the far east of the country, you're going to be talking what? A much smaller scale? What kind of consumer? Well, you're not going to have, big office buildings or warehouses or factories. Your consumer is probably going to be individual houses or a small community. So the scale and the geographic location go simultaneously hand in hand. You've got to look at issues of efficiency, because if you're not efficient, your costs are too high and you go out of business because you can't compete. And competitive doesn't just, these are not the same thing. Competitive means that think again about the analogy of the drill in the hole. Okay, whoever you're just so hard to say sometimes. You're not competing. This is one of the complaints I have of business colleges. We teach kind of the wrong stuff sometimes. You do not compete against other producers of the same product. You don't compete against other suppliers of the same thing. You are competing against the unmet need of the consumer. Okay? That's what you're competing against. So if you can convince a consumer that you can do their job, meet their need, solve their problem better than anybody else, they're going to hire you. They're going to buy your product. They're going to buy your service, right? But you're competing against their desire. You're not competing against other companies that produce drills. You're competing against their desire, and their desires are, I want a hole, right? I want a hole. And I want it this big, and I want it in metal, and I want it now, and I want it efficiently, and I want it cheaply, and I want it safely. And so if you can convince them of that, then there is no such thing as competition. So you're not competing against the competition, because if you can find a superior way to meet all those consumer needs, then there literally is no competition. You're the only game in town. Okay? Think Uber. Think yellow taxi. Uber's doing well. It's probably not a good example. Uber's in trouble. I put this, et cetera, because again, okay, I don't want you to think, oh, okay, step 2 is we go from 4 boxes to 5 boxes. No, there's like 1 million boxes. It depends. Okay, some ideas have lots of boxes, but remember, some ideas have lots of boxes, some have a few. But there's no such thing as a standalone. Everything's connected, and everything has to be addressing this consumer need, right? Better health in this example. And then you got to think of these things. network ecosystem externalities, they tend to be spoken often as synonyms, and they sort of are, and they're sort of not. They sort of are and they sort of not. You have to think, for example, what am I going to do absolutely everything in my company, existing or new? Am I going to do absolutely everything in my company that needs to be done in order to meet this consumer need? Or am I going to have to, have it outsourced, right? And when it's outsourced, am I going to create, just a network of suppliers? We sign a contract and they sell me something, or am I going to build more of an ecosystem? Okay, somebody in the class, several somebody, are working on this idea. I hope they're working on the idea of a self-sustaining greenhouse. And as soon as they told me the idea, the word ecosystem popped into my mind. Because the idea is, okay, look, we're going to have a greenhouse. We're going to generate our own energy from the agricultural waste. Okay, and then I'll ask, well, how? Maybe biogas. And scalability is an issue because you could produce more energy. It's called a combined heat and power, CHP. You could produce more heat and more electric energy than you need. So then you sell the excess heat and energy. That's an additional source of cash flow. Right away, you've created an ecosystem because you could be selling it to the grid, or you could sell it to another company that you might own. And that company would do something, and it could be something totally different from growing tomatoes or peppers in a greenhouse, right? Okay, and so, and the idea, they're talking about recycling the water. Well, if you start doing all of this, you're going to generate the need. Well, we're going to recycle all of our water. Well, how are you going to do that? Okay, well, we're going to go out and find, the best state-of-the-art water recycling equipment. Well, what if it doesn't exist? Or what if you have to pay a huge price to import it from, Germany to I don't know, Bangladesh? Well, what if you were to produce your own water systems, for lack of a better term? You produce it, you use it in your greenhouse, and then you sell the rest of your production to other greenhouses or to other people who want to recycle water in a single building, right? This is how you build an ecosystem.
It was recycling garbage.
Hmm? Garbage.
Recycled garbage.
Yeah.
It was not water. It
Okay.
was garbage.
Okay. Well, you could recycle water too. Garbage. That's even better.
Yeah, that's what we said. Garbage, and we will use it like waste management.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was what it.
And if you're going to take garbage and produce some form of energy, I presume electric energy, well, it doesn't necessarily. You can produce biofuels and sell it to gasoline stations, right? Here comes the ecosystem. You end up with an ecosystem when when you're producing more than you need, and then you say, maybe we'll take the excess and put it into another company, and we'll use that to produce something else, and we'll make a second cash flow, a second source of cash. Okay, I mentioned to you the brilliant guy in Nigeria who created Celtel. You guys know Celtel, right? All right, it's the largest mobile phone operator in not just Nigeria, in Africa. And that guy, brilliant guy, he came from Harvard Business School or McKinsey or something. But he ended up creating an ecosystem because everybody said, well, not only can you not sell cell phones in Africa because they cost too much, which was stupid, right? No, it was stupid to say, well, you can't sell cell phones in Africa because they cost too much. No, you can't sell the same cell phone you would sell in California. You can't sell that same cell phone in Africa, but you can produce a cell phone that will meet the consumer need, which is, I want to talk to my mother without taking a bus for 100 miles, right? I mean, that's like no, seriously, I'm really serious. That is like the number one need that everybody has. I want to communicate with my family, and they're over there, and they're over there. All right, and then they said, well, it'll never work because you don't have any cell phone towers. So he created an ecosystem. He set up a company, started to produce his own cell phone towers. Okay, there's I can't remember, doesn't matter. There's several countries in Africa now that they're producing school buildings from plastic bricks. And these plastic bricks are harder than any stone. They will last forever. They provide better heat in the winter because, trust me, I've been all over Africa. It can get quite cold some places in the winter, especially like in South Africa. You really get cold. It gets better. It's cooler in the summer. It's warmer in the winter. It's a lot cheaper than trying to build out of bricks. And how are they doing this? Well, first, there was a company in, of all places, Colombia, that was collecting a certain type of plastic, certain type of plastic bottles, because there's a million different kinds of plastic. And they were taking this very common and easily recyclable plastic, and they were producing the bricks, and then they chipped the bricks over, and then the school would be built. Well, very quickly, the Colombian guys figured out that they're going to start producing these bricks right there on site because plastic sadly is everywhere. So taking this plastic garbage and turning it into bricks and building the school. This is the ecosystem. And your innovation activity is going to be more impressive the more of these little ecosystem nodes that you plug in with a network, right? Really cool, really cool. Okay, that I think. Now we're to your part. You want to take a break? Want to take a break? Yeah? Yes? No? Okay. Let's take a short break because now I'm going to start asking you guys questions because we're to the slide entitled Everything I Wish I'd Thought About Before Coming to the class. But no, again, that's a very serious thought, right? Right? Everything I wish I'd thought about. Okay, let's take a quick break. I think a couple people already ran off to, yeah. Careful with your leg there. Now I know why you're on the same team. Now I know why you're on the same team.
We speak together French.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's one of the world's most beautiful languages. So what are you gonna do? Team up with the guy that speaks German? Nah.
Not with the guys that speak English.
Or English or French. I don't know. English. Everybody, French, Spanish, Italian. They have a musical character to them. They flow. English is kind of like German. It's yeah. But French, it just flows.
Last time you said something that you never feel. What did you mean by you never feel?
Oh, I was actually really serious. Probably thought I was bragging.
Because what I know is that a lot of successful people they encountered some obstacles. I will say in quote, they failed, but they didn't stop there. They kept on pushing until they got what they wanted.
So they didn't fail.
Okay.
Okay. No, seriously. Because, and I always say that because I like to see people's reactions, okay? Because they think, well, that's kind of arrogant. No. I learned that from Thomas Edison. Remember Thomas Edison?
10,000.
That's why I tell that story. Because, you know, I mean, some reporter said, oh my God, how did you keep going? Your inner strength. You failed 10,000, because he himself admitted, you know, that, and they said, oh, you failed 10,000 times to produce the incandescent light bulb. And he said, I didn't fail, right? I didn't fail. I discovered 10,000 ways to produce an incandescent light bulb that didn't work. until I discovered a way that did work. So you just don't let the word failure into your brain. And so you just said, well, what about these successful people? And then they fail, but eventually they succeed. And they say, okay, so they didn't fail. Right? Yeah, they didn't fail. It's like, you know, you fall down and you get up again, right? And you run a race, right? You fall down and you get up again and you win the race. When somebody says, you won the race, actually I failed because I fell down. Yeah, nah, you didn't fail. You fell down. No, fail is where you stop, right? So if Thomas Edison had stopped after 9,999 times he invented the incandescent light bulb, only it didn't work, he discovered if he hadn't kept going that one last time, he just stopped, then you could say, wow, what a failure. In fact, you wouldn't even know his name.
Oh, I would know his name as the man who failed this number of times.
Well, I hope he would have hidden that knowledge from you. You know, sure. So the serious point, that's why I always say that. I mean, of course, I've what do you want to say? I've discovered many ways to make money that don't work. I've discovered many ways to do things that don't work. But because I never stop and I just keep going, and maybe I don't actually get to where I was going initially, I end up somewhere else, but it turns out to be kind of a cool place. Okay, fine. So, but that's why I say that, because you as long as you never stop, you never fail. Yeah. But you got to show up, man. You have to come to class, come on time. You got to do everything. You got to do it perfect. You know. Yeah. And again, I'm really serious. Okay, you want to have a happy life and a successful life. So you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to do everything perfectly and immediately, and then I'm going to go do something else. Now, in reality, it won't be perfect and it won't be immediate, but it'll be a lot better and a lot faster than if you just say, okay, here we go. So people who work for me, I usually drive them all crazy because I want everything done perfectly and I want it done immediately. And, you know, I mean, it's never done perfectly, it's never done immediately, but, you know, it's always done better than if I hadn't set that as the requirement, right? So. This is becoming a class in philosophy. It is, but just be happy. Okay. All right, they'll wander back. Okay, so are we still online? Yes. Okay, we're beginning to look like a Ukrainian road construction crew where you have one person working and two people supervising. Actually, it'd be more like one woman working and 7 men supervising. That would be a road construction crew. Okay, so, all right. Now you guys get to talk. Who wants to talk first? You've all, let me show you. Okay, this is how I'm gonna help you because you haven't had a chance to look at the videos and all the PowerPoints from the old stuff. You get to go last. Okay, I'm helping you.
I was the first class.
Oh, you were the first class. Okay.
I thought we had more classes.
Okay. Tell me what ideas are in your head. You can have 10 of them, one of them. You just can't have zero.
Can I have 3 of them?
Tell me. Okay, go first. You set a good example. Remind me of the 3 ideas.
So basically, they are all in different areas. So the first one will be popular, and I can explain why.
Tell me.
The second one will be innovative, but based on a low tech.
Okay.
And the third one will be I cannot even how I can implement this into business, but it would be pretty useful for our little green ball, which we
Cool.
call an Earth.
Okay.
So the first one is the ordinary Ukrainian hookah tobacco. Why? Why would it would be
Wait, say that again.
the tobacco
Tobacco.
for a hookah? Hookah, shisha.
Oh, okay. I got you. Okay.
Uh,
It was a new concept.
I thought in the same way with the, for example, with the sushi and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Our country, those two things, such as sushi and hookah,
Mm-hmm.
are overpopular and overpriced.
Okay.
So you can pay for sushi the same amount of money which you can spend on like your monthly food,
Mm-hmm.
for an example. So if we make Ukrainian tobacco, which will be based on the Ukrainian fields,
Mm-hmm.
it would be useful for country and for people. No, not it would not be useful for people, but still it would be popular.
That's okay. I mean, it's a free world. If somebody wants to smoke tobacco, they can smoke tobacco.
Yeah. The second idea is based on an ordinary umbrella, but we can't successfully implement it in Ukraine. But for example, if we took in England, where the rains and the weather is always like bad, the main problem which I'm thinking as a customer when I'm buying an umbrella,
Mm-hmm.
it should be like pretty tough, so it should not break with the wind.
Mm-hmm.
But the main problem which I stand, which I will face, it's that you have to like be pretty strong, like to handle it sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
because the wind could be pretty strong.
Yeah.
So I thought about an idea. So how we can put the umbrella to like our regular clothes. I can't like explain it well in English, but the whole idea is to place the umbrella on yourself, not in your hand, and control it with your phone.
Gotcha.
So we and the main problem, your hands are free, so you can use a phone, you can read a book, you can do whatever you want, and the umbrella will stand, and you will be as an object,
Mm-hmm.
which will not give it to swipe right, swipe left, or whatever side it is. So something like that.
That's brilliant.
And the third one is well control. So
What control?
Weather control.
Weather control. Okay.
I thought that during your talk,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't listened to you for 5 minutes, but I made a little investigation of how rain works, and I thought that somehow we can try to control it and make the rain whenever we want, on the fields, on the farms, or so on.
Mm-hmm.
Because usually you just have to heat up the air a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and when it's will start to cool down, the rain will start. So it's like regular science. It's not that hard, but we can still think in this way. So this is like a basics.
I like all 3 of those ideas. And the reason I like all 3 of those ideas is that it's the first time ever in my life I've heard those ideas. I mean, the umbrella, I'm fascinated by the umbrella that would like be built into a coat so that the rod itself would in effect be your entire body, right? So the wind wouldn't be blowing just the umbrella you're holding in your hand. It would actually, the wind would have to be blowing your entire body. So I like all three of those ideas. I've never heard of that before, and they're really kind of cool, and they sound kind of crazy. And the crazier they sound, the better they are. Seriously. So I like that. I like that. If you decide, you can play around with all three of them if you want. This is a course on creative thinking. Okay. I'll give you one thing about the weather thing is you'll have to assume that there are no legal regulatory barriers. Okay. Because in most countries, you can't just go out and start doing something to affect the weather. So you'd have to kind of assume that there were no legal regulatory barriers. That might be a big assumption. Some of the science, I don't know if it's tested or not. The only caution I have besides the legal regulatory, okay, you just assume that it exists. Okay, right? Just assume it exists. I think I said that in some of the notes anyway. Putting prices on things will be a little difficult.
Yeah, as I said, for the third one, I can't even imagine. So the first thing that I can get money with this third one is like only investitions from other companies or some people or whatever.
Yeah.
But how we can like implement it successfully, we like have to make a good show up, and maybe then the states would buy the technology. But that's the only way how I can see it.
Yeah. That's a tough one, because you say, okay, well, what are my sources of cash flow? Okay, so let's assume I have a technology and I can make it rain a certain amount in a certain area for a certain amount of time. Let's just assume I have that science. And nowadays, that's not even crazy to make that assumption. But then the question is, okay, how do I monetize that? I can make it rain at a certain place for a certain amount of time and a certain amount of water, but then how do I monetize that? That's a tough one. I mean, the umbrella, you can monetize that through regular channels, okay? But I like the reason the umbrella thing is fascinating. And again, this is what makes creative thinking fun, man. The reason I like that is it touches on an unmet need. Everybody would love to walk down the street when it's raining, hands-free, stay under an umbrella, stay as dry as you can, because sometimes the wind blows the rain horizontal. But everybody, I can't think of one human being who wouldn't want to walk down the street with an umbrella, staying dry, but have their hands free, right? Everybody wants that. It seems to me everybody would want that. So if you can figure out a way to provide that, right, that meets all kinds of different criteria, if you can find a way to provide that, that seems to me the market, except for maybe in the Sahara Desert or the Gobi Desert, where it never rains, Atacama Desert of Chile, but nobody lives there, right? But man, I can definitely see a market for that. If you could literally figure out a way to do that. And then the cash flow source is kind of simple, right? You sell it wholesale or retail, or, there'd be some distribution mechanism. There could be 4 or 5 different ways to distribute: online, through retail, blah, 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 okay? You'd want to create some clever brand maybe that sticks in people's brains, right? So that when they hear the brand, they think of your umbrella, right? Like if I say to you, if I say to you Xerox, right? Xerox is a company that doesn't even exist, but for 30, 40, 50 years, the word Xerox was synonymous with making a photocopy. And the world didn't have photocopy machines. They had Xerox machines. I mean, we called them Xerox machines because there's only one company in the world that produced a photocopy machine. It was called Xerox. So you say, I'm going to go Xerox this on the Xerox machine. All right, so you may want to come up with a clever brand that they hear the name and they think your umbrella, okay? So, you know, like if I say Apple, you don't think of Yabloko, the political party, if they still exist in Russia, you know? You don't think of the Apple. When I say Apple, you immediately think of, you know, a cell phone, right? You think of a laptop. But that's a cool idea because there's an unmet need, right? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'd love to walk down the street hands free and have an umbrella. Okay, all right. Oh, you guys are a team. All right. Every team has to have a spokesperson.
But also, I can't agree with you. We can implement the idea with an umbrella even with the summer in the heat.
True.
Because
Sure.
like some
Yes.
people usually using the special umbrellas for the sun for the heat to be cold, like to not stay in the shadows.
And you'd sell so many of those to Chinese tour groups you couldn't even count.
Yeah, my bike will decrease.
Yeah, right. Go to Greece, right? You go to Greece. You go up to the Acropolis, and here comes a tour group of like 300 beautiful middle-class Chinese tourists, and they've all got umbrellas because damn, it's hot in Athens in the summer. All right, you let them off the hook.
Even there is a short thing for the company, like for the products umbrella in the heat over under the sun is like not be in the shadows.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm giving you a serious piece of complimentary feedback, which I hope everybody will pay attention to. It seems to me, I could be wrong, but it seems to me that there is an unmet need in the world to walk underneath an umbrella, whether you're blocking the sun or the rain, and have your hands free, right? There used to be an unmet need in the world to be able to have a hands-free cell phone while you're driving, right? Everybody's driving and everybody wants to use their cell phone while they're driving. And then here came a number of solutions to that problem. Those little things, you stick it on the windshield and stick your phone on the magnet. Okay, you stick an earplug in, or it's built right into your car where you can drive and say, "Call mom," you know, right? So there was a need for hands-free. You can't even say cell phone. You could say hands-free telephony, right? Because the idea was to make a phone call or take a phone call. Telephony. And so there was a need for hands-free telephony, and then here came all these solutions. Some really cheap ones where you stick your cell phone on a magnet, and then some really sophisticated ones where you buy a new car and it's all built in there and you can just say, "Call mom," right? So that's cool. All right. You must have a good idea because I saw you guys squirming there. Okay. What are you working on? What are you thinking about?
Well, at first we had the idea of creating a club that would trade players. So players, basically basketball, but then I switched. One of my teammate wants to maintain the idea.
There's two of you or three of you?
We are three. But then another idea came. I came up with a different idea. It was about agriculture, but it wasn't much innovative. I just realized that what we need to come up with should be innovative, right?
Maybe.
But it would meet the need. It is not that innovative, but it would meet the need in the region where I grew up.
Tell me what it is. And I'll tell you right now, it's whatever it is, it's innovative.
It's just agriculture, trying to grow crops that because we mostly export any products, import rather. Everything that is food, even the basic things, onions, carrots, anything.
So well, first of all, that meets my definition of innovation, right? You have an unmet need. Now, you defined an unmet need. We have yet to see if the market agrees with you, right? You're from Nigeria, right?
No,
Sorry.
not.
Well, where are you from?
I'm from Congo.
Congo, okay. Maybe, purely hypothetically, maybe everybody in Congo says, the best tomatoes in the world come from Mexico, and we're not going to buy a tomato grown in Nigeria. Even if you put a gun to my head, we won't do it because everybody knows the best tomatoes come from Mexico. So then I'm making up an extreme, stupid example. Because if you had that case, it'd be really hard to grow tomatoes in Nigeria, okay? But if what you're saying to me is, look, we have this unmet need, and the unmet need is we need produce in this country that is just as good as what's imported, or preferably better, and it costs less. Well, then if you provide a tomato, just got to pick some example. If you provide a tomato and it tastes better to the taste buds of the Congolese people, because not all tomatoes taste the same, right? So you figure out, I'm Congolese and I like to cook, and I know what kind of tomatoes taste best in our cuisine. And if you then produce that tomato, you're meeting an unfulfilled need, because you're giving somebody a tomato that tastes better to the local taste. It tastes better in the local dishes that are cooked very commonly. It's cheaper. It's going to be fresher because you're not going to import it from thousands of miles away. Pick it green. You're going to pick it just a day or two or three. So that's innovation, because you got to figure out how to do that, and figuring out how to do that means innovation.
Yeah, and the third idea I just came up with that one is regarding the transportation area. I realized that in my region also, it is a huge problem. People, for instance, once it rains, and once it rains especially, it is difficult, for instance, to get the bus to get home, or to leave from any place.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that for instance, I could create a company that would people would just subscribe. They will produce our own tickets, or way of we will produce our own tickets. People will just buy them, or they will book some places. So that, for instance, let's say after school or after work, people could just look at the app or call to check whether it is still available, to be sure that they have a place.
A place on the bus,
On the bus, yes.
and also they'll know when the bus is coming.
Exactly.
Sure.
Because right now, I think that once it rains, it is really difficult for people to get back to go to any place.
So I come out of my office, and I normally take the bus, but I don't want to stand on the street and get wet, because I don't have his umbrella.
We'll call
Yeah,
it
I don't have his umbrella, so I don't want to stand on the street and get wet. I want to but I don't want to sit in my office and then the bus comes and I miss the bus. So your idea is to have, or I know the bus is coming and I run out to catch the bus, but there's no seats. And so now I get wet, right? So your idea is to have an app that tells people exactly when the bus would arrive, how many empty seats, or because I've bought a ticket, I'm guaranteed a seat.
But having the ticket, it is guaranteed that I will have the seat.
Cool.
But it
Because
already
you think-
exists. It's called Uber Shuttle.
No, I'm not talking about Ukraine, because we have different environments. In the region where I grew up with, we don't really use the internet. Whatsoever is credit card, for instance, we don't trust that.
Right.
So it's better
Yeah.
we go manual.
Go ahead.
So having such idea.
Oh, manually meaning I've got the ticket and the ticket says
Yes, you could.
okay.
Yes,
Okay.
you could receive a call from the driver telling you,
Or a text message.
a text message,
Right.
because the internet might not work.
Right.
It's not really reliable in some
Mhm.
places.
Okay, your comment.
My comment, yeah.
Your comment. I loved your comments.
Of course.
Well, because they stimulate thought. Now, you said something really important. You said, well, it already exists. And it does. But if somebody had told Samsung, but smartphones already exist. We got Apple, we got Nokia. Or you're told, what's the new one? Doogee, D-O-O-G-E-E, the Chinese. Doogee. Well, come on, Doogee, you're a little late. We got Nokia. There was a smartphone for my grandfather. It was so long ago. So yeah, Uber exists, and any kind of on-demand things exist, but it doesn't exist necessarily everywhere, and everywhere has a little different market characteristics. I mean, okay, like, well, we don't use the internet, but we could maybe organize this around a voice call, or better yet, a text message. Okay, we do in most American, not most, many American cities now. You go to the bus stop, like in Union City, New Jersey. Okay, personal example. You go to the bus stop, and you look up at the sign, and just try to read a sign of all the bus numbers and the times. You get a headache. But you see, right? But you see this little number, like 7123, and so you take out your cell phone and you go 7123, and it's banging directly onto the Union City, New Jersey, or probably even a bigger metro area, and then you immediately get a text message that says that bus will be at your stop, because that number tells them what bus, and it tells you exactly where you are on the route of the bus, and it'll come back and say 3 minutes.
But we already have Google Maps.
Yeah, but I'm standing there with a cell phone and I don't have internet access, and Google Maps isn't gonna help me maybe as much, right?
Okay, sorry to ask. It might be a bit complicated, but you're in the 21st century. How it happened that you don't have internet?
Oh, simple. So you gotta think really creatively. I have a cell phone with 2 chips. Okay, I got 2 chips. I got an American chip and I got a Ukrainian chip. And in Ukraine, I have a package. So I'm online 24/7. I got unlimited data. I got unlimited everything, right? When I go back to America, I don't want to pay $50, $75 a month with a 3-year contract, a 2-year, or 1-year contract to have the same thing in America. Why? Because I'm not in America all the time. Why should I pay $75 a month for a service I'm not going to use for 2 or 3 months because I'm in Ukraine? Okay, it's not the money so much, it's the principle of the thing. So when I'm in America, I switch to my AT&T Go phone chip, and I pay 10 cents a minute. Okay, so every year I probably save $1,000 a year because I don't have a package. I just pay 10 cents a minute. Internet's free, only voice calls. Calls coming in are free, only my calls going out. So I save at least $1,000 a year, but I don't have 24/7 internet everywhere. But what do I care? I mean, you could throw a stone in any direction in America and hit a Starbucks, right? Or a McDonald's, free Wi-Fi is everywhere. So when I need Wi-Fi, I just look across the street and there's a coffee shop, and I go over and I got Wi-Fi, and I go to the coffee shop and call my Uber that way. But a lot of people don't. A lot of people in America, they might be elderly and they don't want to hassle around with all of that. Uber's expensive, buses are cheap. The person doesn't want to try to figure this out with Google Maps, right? So there is an unmet need. And one of the ways you meet the unmet need, these people, maybe their English isn't very good. They don't have internet access. Uber's too expensive. They want to take the bus, which is cheap. and all they have to do is remember that at their bus stop, there's a number, and they can just push that number and for free, and then the city comes back and says 3 minutes. The bus will be there.
But don't you have that things like we have on our
Sure.
bus stop?
Sure, but remember, there's no. We don't want to have the. I like to use the example of the Soviet shoe factory. Right? One size fits all. Right? We got a size 9 shoe and it's brown because this is the Soviet shoe. Right? One size fits all. So there's many different kinds of consumers who use public transportation, right? Whether it's an Uber, a bus, the metro, or they're renting a scooter. So there's like a million little micro market segments in the market that says move my body from point A to point B. And you got to provide a solution to every one of those needs. And there are people like me when I visit my friends in Union City, New Jersey. I don't have 27 internet, but I do know that across the street from where I stay, there's a bus stop, and I remember the number, of that bus stop. And so when I'm ready to go, I put in the number and it says 15 minutes. I say, great, I'll wait 12 minutes and then I'll go walk across the street. So, I mean, I'm pretty high tech and I can certainly afford Uber, but the bus actually goes faster because if I take the bus from New Jersey to Manhattan, I get in the bus only lane and I wave at all the Ubers in the bumper to bumper traffic. And they're paying $25 and I'm paying, what, $1.75 one way, and I get there faster, right? And okay, so there's a million, so no, your point is a really, really good one. There could be for you a superior solution, but that superior solution for you might change depending on where in the world you're at, right? And what circumstances you're at. And the superior solution for you at this time in this place might be different than the optimal solution for another person who's in the same place at the same time. So the markets will always provide a really, really broad range of many different kinds of solutions. And that's what he's pointing to is a type of consumer that isn't going to be, whose needs won't be met by Uber, right? So that's what innovation is about. Now, you got to be careful. If you define a market niche and there's only 12 people in the market niche, whoops! How do you scale a business to meet the needs of 12 people? Now, I think what you're referring to is probably more like 12 million people who are going to be in that niche. Okay,
Of course not.
maybe even 112 million are in that niche. Okay, so that's cool. That's cool. All right, you guys are a team.
Yeah.
Remind me again what you're doing.
We have the cosmetic salon.
Oh,
Company.
the spa.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Tell people about that, because I wrote you an email and I said, this is brilliant, I love it. And I gave you a bunch of ideas that you get to use for free in the class. Tell me.
Give us the few minutes.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
oh, you need more time?
Just to get ready to.
Okay, all right, okay. All right. I'm gonna help you out by mentioning that it's a really cool idea. And I like it because, again, I like anything I hadn't thought of. Which is like, 90% of every thing in the world I haven't thought of, right? And so the umbrella thing is cool, okay? Your niche is cool because, again, having worked and lived in many countries, I can see exactly in my mind's eye the type of consumer need you're thinking about. That's cool. And their idea is really kind of clever too. You're a team. No. Okay, let's see. Hey, back in the blue hat.
I don't have a team. Maybe I'm gonna work on myself.
That's cool. I do a lot of stuff by myself. You know?
And unfortunately, I couldn't reach the previous classes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of just getting ahead of
Okay,
things.
cool. Cool. Well spoken. Well spoken. You know, never apologize. So look at the previous videos. If that's just too long and watching 2 videos of me is just too much for you, look at the PowerPoints. Look at the PowerPoints that had a bunch of like innovation ideas. Okay, because that's like real companies doing really cool things. Read that 1 page I think I wrote on Moodle. Okay, and then we're going to get you next time.
Yeah, I just want to provide like half-assed idea right now on the spot.
I love that. By the way, I love that. That's great English expression, half-assed. Okay, that's a pure American English. Where'd you learn American English like that, man? You didn't learn that from a British English teacher.
No, I don't know actually how
It's not.
adopted this type of speech. I really don't know.
All right. Well, it's not actually bad words. It's an half-assed. It means okay. A more appropriate would be half-baked. A half-baked idea, right? You put the cake in the oven, you take it out only halfway, and what do you have? Well, you got a half-baked cake, which means you got nothing. So it's a half-baked idea. So, all right, we'll let you off the hook.
I have the same situation like
All right. Come to work for me. We're going to fix that. All right, we're going to let you off the hook because this is a fun class. So nobody gets like tortured, crucified, nothing like that. Okay. Think about something. Because what's the last day of class? December 17th. The end is near.
Oh, stop.
Not trying to put any pressure on you or anything. Okay. You guys back there with the tasty food that's driving me crazy. Bring all the food you want, but okay. Tell me what you're doing again.
We had like 3 ideas. The first one was like an innovative gym, kind of gyms. It's not even like the gym, but health system.
Oh, you're the one. Wait,
Health system center.
you're the ones that had the idea where you have a kind of gym where you're focused on different age groups and okay.
Yeah, different age groups.
All right. I loved that.
Oh, nice, thank you. Because that was just the idea created through the problem and need that has, for example, my mom and other parents.
Mm-hmm.
Because, for example, when they enter kind of this modern cool gym where really skinny girls make selfies and they feel a bit embarrassed just entering that kind of rooms and start training. So that is the biggest issue for them. So basically that is how the idea turned out to be. And we can really focus, as you gave the comment, that we can focus not only on the age criteria, not only on the weight criteria, but also on different physical problems that people might have with their kind of health, maybe diet problems and so on. And turn out it's like not just a gym, but a big health center, like updated, modern, innovative gym that will help you not just to become fit, but become more healthier. And there is one interesting thing that I get to know this like couple of weeks, that there is a special interesting kind of equipment that is called Tanita weights, I guess, which measure not only the amount of fat you have in your leg, just like exactly in your left leg, right leg, in your left hand, in your right leg, hand, but it also weighs kind of the age of your organism and of your body. So this is kind of modern weights and they're pretty cool because if you train a lot, the minimum that you can receive is like 12 years. This is the age of your organism, which you can get through regular training, diets, and proper lifestyle. So this
Cool.
is kind of interesting equipment that can be also used, and I'm pretty sure that it's unknown in Ukraine, definitely.
Well,
because
so it exists, right?
it exists,
And you
yes,
can-
it already exists, and like I guess in 1 week I will even try one by
Okay,
myself.
so you could sign some kind of a licensing agreement to
Yeah.
use that kind
There
of?
is a special organization that can provide such kind of equipment. They sell this kind of equipment, and every regular person, I think, can go there and just to that exact office and just try for himself how it looks like and what it shows. Basically, this kind of equipment really helps a lot to understand even with the training on which part of your body you need to focus during trainings. So basically, how you should train a specific program of trainings, what products is better to eat, how much muscles,
Mhm.
weight you have, and actually from what consists your weight. Not just like from fat, from muscles and so on, but from everything. And this kind of, it is called smart weights, Tanita. You can also Google them. They're available in Ukraine already for sure. I'm pretty sure that they're available in Europe and already well known. But
Sure.
just in Ukraine, the majority of people do not know about them. So that was an interesting thing that I get to know in this 2 or 3 weeks.
All right, here's a question for the whole class.
Yeah, they're, by the way, yeah, one more thing.
Oh,
Like
keep
shows,
going,
They're
please.
pretty expensive. This is the biggest problem of this weight. Yeah, they're really expensive. That is why it is better to have like, you can have just one of them in your center and it's just enough.
And make it a service and like make people pay for it.
It's not the thing about like making it a payable service and earn money. This is the thing to make training more efficient and more professional because
Of course, but there's nothing bad for it.
there's nothing bad, but I mean the biggest purpose not just to earn money in this kind of.
Of course, but this is your business. You're doing it for like getting some money.
Sure.
We're waiting for your idea.
Okay. I have a question for the class though. Why is it that I really love this idea? Come on, you know me well enough now. Think of all the things I've told you. Why? What is, okay, let me phrase it differently, because this is why I love it, but let me phrase it differently. What is the most powerful, compelling argument for that idea?
This niche is not занята.
There is
Right,
desired need.
Right. Good for you. I wasn't thinking of that. I would have. Give me some time. But that's great. Yes, absolutely. The niche is not taken. So they're not competing against other existing gyms because the other existing gyms aren't fulfilling the niche either, right? The reason I like it so much is that it strikes it's really human. It strikes a really deep emotional, psychological chord, right? Right? Because, you go to a lot of health clubs, and if you're young and you're really fit, but what if you're old and what if you're fat and you feel uncomfortable? We could come up with 1,000 reasons why somebody feels uncomfortable going into a standard health club. And so what is the need that's not being met? The need is, I really need to go into a health club and feel comfortable and do whatever it is I want to do there, right? And feel comfortable. Don't feel ashamed because I'm too old, I'm too weak, I'm too fat, I'm too short, right? And so that's what I like about it. It's got this really human, emotional, psychological aspect to it, So that's why I like it. It's all right.
Yeah, but we are really thinking about like proceed with this exact idea, but we also had 2 different, but we still didn't start our like discussion of those 2.
Okay.
This one for me also very. I also like this one because basically really that was created with like brainstorming with my mother in the kitchen. And the second thing is that
Cool.
I personally will test those interesting weights. so I can even share the experience or
Mhm.
whether it is really worth going on with this kind of cool idea with smart base and so on, with developing appropriate training program and so on. So that is something that I can really test. in
And what
person.
were the other two ideas? I liked all three of them, but I can't
The second
remember.
idea was like dormitory system in Ukraine because basically we do not have an appropriate one with any university here, like literally. And we're not talking about the students. We're talking like generally this kind of dormitory system that used to be in the Soviet Union, I guess, or something like that.
I liked that too. I think I wrote you guys the longest notes. I liked that too because, yeah, there's a real unmet need here with. I'm telling you guys something you obviously know is that there's a lot of room for improvement in the student dormitory industry of Ukraine, and so that's a real market. I mean, that's a big sort of real estate development deal, but there's a real need there. There's no doubt about that. There's a real need there. And what was the third idea?
The third one was to create a specific kind of platform where students can receive not only English but foreign different books,
Textbooks, yeah.
textbooks
yeah.
translated into native language, like it can be Ukrainian but Russian, but those exact books with that exact material translated out in native language.
Right,
So that
as a
people
subscription service.
Yeah, on a
Yeah.
subscription basis.
I don't
We also
know.
do not have such kind of service here, but we all know that like English books that we get here in university, they're pretty cool. They're like Cambridge books, Oxford books, and they're very, very informative. And the problem that they're a lot expensive for people to buy, and there is a big problem that the majority of Ukrainian people, they still have this kind of language barrier, and they just do not understand the content that is written in English in those books. I'm just talking about English just as an example, because we can also talk about Spanish books, French, and so on. And here is the biggest problem that there is not a lot of translation of these books. So basically, if we will create this kind of platform, even elder people who are right now not lazy, but just it is really hard for them to start learning English on that level to read books.
Right,
They
right,
can have an
right.
access to this kind of knowledge.
Yeah, and it's amazing that there is a huge unmet need there, and if it could somehow be provided online with a subscription service, even like a per item or a per month subscription service.
Basically, this subscription is kind of modern business model that is becoming more and more popular. So, and it really works well. So why not to use it?
Yeah. Well, the key, it seems to me, to making that work has to be a vast improvement in the algorithms that can translate accurately.
I think that there are a lot of,
Takes-
there are a lot of translators who can do that work, but the problem that they do not receive the appropriate payment, so that is why they do not want to even start translating.
Yeah.
But if this kind of platform will pay for the translation, they will do that. So this all can be done just in a win-win situation for all the sides. So why not?
Well, see, that's what's really cool. So you got like three ideas, and you just keep kicking them around in your head. And if you're like me, you can think in terms of little integrated boxes. And well, what about this? And what about that? And what about this? And what about that? And at some point down the road, you'll say, well, maybe this idea just isn't going to work. That's why it's always a good idea to have, like 4 or 5 ideas, 4 or 5 ideas every day. Well, okay, at some point you say, well, either this isn't going to work, or I can't really figure out how I could make it work, or I think I know how I can make this work, but it's not going to be sustainable or competitive or profitable, or and so you can think up 10 ideas and throw away 7 of them and add 2 and throw away 1, and that's kind of like fun. And then by the end of the class, you say, okay, here's the one idea that I've kind of thought about the most. Okay. And remember, at this stage, you're not going to be expected to bring, you know, a business plan, and here's your integrated balance sheet, cash flow and income statement, and it's all been forecasted, and I got the price and the cost, and no, not at this stage, okay? And in fact, one of the problems with the way we teach entrepreneurialism in the world is we focus a little too much on the tools, and right away you think, okay, I got to have a financial plan. No. First you got to have a validated concept to do something innovative in your brain. First you got to have that, and you got to kind of convince yourself there's a high probability this can work because there's a real need, and I think we can fit the need, okay? And then like the very last thing you ever do is things like marketing plans and cash flow projections and financial plans. That always is the very last thing. And you know what? That's often the easiest because it begins to get a little mechanical, right? I mean, if you're going to make a cash flow projection, you got to have a price and some costs, and you got to have this and that, and it becomes more of a data gathering. Okay, let's research the market. What are market prices? How much could I go above that, or because I have something superior, or go below that? Okay, because I'm more efficient. But at some point at the end, when you get to the business plan part, it tends to be more one-dimensional, more mechanical. You know, it's like we got to do the research, we got to get the data, we got to plug it into our spreadsheets, and right. But the hardest thing to do is to figure out in your brain, here's something innovative, and I've tried to think of every conceivable little box. You know, tried to think of every conceivable little interactive thing. You know, so I haven't forgotten something. Remember the analogy where I said at the end of the term, you need to convince me that you have a chair with 4 legs. Actually, you can have a chair with 10 legs, right? But you can't have a chair with 2 legs. You can even have a chair with 3 legs, depending on how you build. But I don't know anybody who's figured out how to build a chair with only 2 legs. The point being is if you say, I'm going to develop a steel mill, and I say, great, where are you going to get your raw materials? And you say, what are those? or you say, oh, raw materials. Yeah, you mean, oh yeah, like I need some iron and some chromium. Oh, I don't know. I'll just buy it on the market. Okay, now you've got a chair with 2 legs, right? Because you have to think about all the little pieces, the little Legos, right? It's got to all hang together. And again, it has to have some probability of being feasible. Because until you work with something long and hard, not even necessarily long, but really hard, you don't know it's feasible. In fact, you don't know it's feasible till you go into the market and you try and it doesn't quite work. And so you try again, like Thomas Edison, and finally, after 10,000 times, okay. But what you can't do is you can't come back and say, to me, I'm going to build a chair with 2 legs. I'm going to build a time machine, right? I'm going to build a greenhouse, but I forgot where am I going to get I forgot to think about water supply and a source of energy, and I forgot to think about the market. And because I didn't think about the market, I can't answer one simple question, which is, how big is it going to be? I told you about the greenhouse that's being built in Kentucky. Man, that thing is like, if I remember correctly, it's 21 greenhouse, one building, one roof, 25 hectares. That's a big greenhouse. I think it's the largest. When they finish it, it'll be the largest in America, maybe the largest in the world, because 25 hectares. I mean, that's like the size of the center of Kiev. I mean, that's like a big greenhouse. And they're building it at that scale. Why? Well, because they're putting it in eastern Kentucky. Now, this is not a class in geography, but why are they putting it in eastern Kentucky? Trust me. Kentucky is like the middle of nowhere. Kentucky is like Sumy Oblast, okay? I mean, it's nothing wrong with it, but it's kind of like in the middle of nowhere. So why on earth would you build a 25-hectare greenhouse and put it in eastern Kentucky? Because if you put it in eastern Kentucky, you are equidistant to 75% of the American population. That's pretty cool when you think about it, right? So from eastern Kentucky, and they're going to grow tomatoes, peppers, high value added things, of course, right? They're not going to grow potatoes and grow, specialty things. And they're equidistant between, way up in the Northeast and way down. And so between like Atlanta and Boston, and they're just about equidistant. So that means they've got an optimal location relative to transportation logistics. Okay. But if the guys who were doing that greenhouse came to me and said, "Hey, we're going to build a greenhouse, 25 hectares," I'd say, "Wow, that's cool, man. We're talking scale, and it's scalable. It could have been 5 hectares, 10, 20. They picked 25." I say, "Great, 25 hectares. Where are you going to put it?" He says, "North Dakota." I say, "Man, that's not going to work. Your concept is invalidated. Nothing wrong with North Dakota, but North Dakota is equidistant from nowhere." Okay. I mean, if we have any online students from North Dakota, I love you. But no, I mean, North Dakota, there's very, very, very few people live there, and it's a long way from any population center. So that wouldn't work. But Eastern Kentucky's cool. So you got to think about all those little things. As long as you think about the most obvious things, you're fine. All right. Now, see how we had three ideas over there, 3 ideas here. Maybe you'll sell them one of your ideas. Get a copyright on it and license the idea. So cool. All right. It's kind of late, isn't it? Let's get out of here. It's 8:30. Perfect timing. All right. So what?
I'm just curious, is it fine that we have just more down to earth ideas? They're not like that large in scale. I mean, they're
No.
in terms of we were thinking just in geographic words, but way not in the whole
No. The idea in this class is creativity, innovation.
Okay, awesome.
You can do it on a tiny scale. You can do it on a massive scale. Doesn't matter.
Right, and also this is
And it's
on
fun.
our Keystone you can find a special forum teams and projects. The name of the team and also which project you want to develop. Because it will be very important for us, and from next session you will have different top managers and teachers which will work with you in developing of your startups and of your idea.
You're
That's why
thinking that next class we want to have
next Tuesday. Yes.
there's gonna be another person here?
Yeah.
Can we stick to this one?
We combine.
Okay. I know for sure one student has passed. I respond to flattery.
That wasn't my intent.
I know it wasn't. That's why I said it. So, all right. This is a fun class.